What is this shit? Well, the audio sucks on my videos. That's what this shit is. Because the microphone's here, and if I'm talking here, no one hears it. Also, too, every time I have a talk, whether it's in a candid situation or whether it's in a group, that talk is gone. It's in the ether. It's never to be done again in the way that I did it initially the first time. So depending upon the level of enthusiasm or connection that I have with the people, it's totally different every time. So we're going to try recording at least the second one. The first one's a run through. This is the very first time I did this at 10 a.m. I literally was taking notes off a piece of paper and then scribbling all this down. And then in my mind trying to figure out how to connect it all to where it made sense to people. And as Mariah said, about a quarter of the way through, she was even like, what the fuck is he talking about? But it came together. So that's really all that matters. This is, I would say, how not to set bullshit goals or have bullshit goals. Because everything stems from a goal. And goals as individuals are important, but they should all be the same goal for the most part, right? And what I mean by that is, if you set a goal to look a certain way, to be in a certain size clothes, or to be a certain number on the scale, it's a bullshit goal for many reasons. Hear me out. You can do those things while not being healthy. Meaning, you can get into that size clothing, you can weigh that number on the scale, you can look that way without eating clean, without doing cardio, without even doing HIIT training, right? Let's use supermodels as an example. How much exercise does a supermodel do? Let's say Kate Moss era 1995 supermodel. Zero. They do zero exercise. They're size 0 and they do zero exercise, right? In their mind, the epitome of what they were trying to do has to do with all surface bullshit. It's if I look this way, I get this job, I get this admiration from people. And that's bullshit because, what is the Kate Moss diet? Celery and cocaine was the Kate Moss diet. Celery and cocaine. So you tell me how her goal to look that way was any sort of goal that you would want to have. So now that's obviously opposite end of the spectrum. Now let's bring it back to normal everyday people. If you had those same goals, the problem with those same goals is that you do not have to adhere to any sort of a clean lifestyle for those goals. So initially going in, you say, my goal is to look this way, to weigh this number, to attract a spouse, whatever the hell it is, right? And so you get there. You're there all of the sudden. You're fitting into that size 2, whatever. I don't know women's sizes. For men it's a 30. I guess that's what all you guys want to get into. So you get into that size, and inevitably what happens when you get into that size is, I'm here now, I can experiment. So I'm in this size, or I weigh this number, and then now I can experiment. Meaning, what did I give up to get here, and what can I bring back and still stay here? I give up recreational drinking. I give up junk food. I give up gorging at Thanksgiving. I give up all these things, and in your mind, all these things are built up as a loss. Those losses are what got you to this point. And so now it's, how do I maintain this, size 2 or whatever number on the scale, right? And counteract some of those losses by bringing them back. And so on a Friday, you might have a drink with friends. You get on the scale on a Monday. It didn't affect you. You're still fitting into the size 2. You fit it on. It's not a big deal, right? Second week. Same thing. It's been a long week. Now I'm going to have a couple glasses of wine. And you know what? Everybody's eating cake, so I'm going to have a piece of cake. Not a big deal. It's going to be a small piece. Who cares? Monday comes along, it didn't affect the scale too much, and you're still in a size 2. So second week, you've established a food addiction. Re-established in most people's cases. You've re-established a food addiction. You've modulated your insulin. So on a strictly scientific level, what has happened is you turn your body from an anabolic state, which means burning fat and building muscle, right? Which is what got you to the aesthetic state or the aesthetic desired goal. And you've turned the switch. So all of a sudden you've hit this metabolic switch where now I'm burning muscle and storing fat. But in your mind, you don't think that that can be the case because it's two isolated incidences and it can't be that small. The room for error cannot be that small. And so week 2, not only have you established a food addiction, now you're delusional. Now you're not even in touch with reality. So now that you've established addiction and you're not in touch with reality, what the fuck do you do week 3? Do you all of a sudden go back to what got you to the size 2? Why would you? You're delusional. That's reality, and you're not grounded there. You're grounded somewhere in the ether, right? And so instead, what you do week 3 is you push it a little further. Okay, I'm up a little bit on the scale, but the pants are still fitting, so it's not that big of a deal. I'm going to continue to do this because now I can start making up for these losses. Fast forward 6 or 8 weeks, you're up on the scale. Now you can't say that it's water retention or I'm not doing my cardio or I'm getting old or I'm too young or I didn't get enough sleep or whatever. Now it's tangible and now you can see it on a weekly basis. This is what is happening on the scale, right? Scale is not a good goal for several reasons. But the main reason it's not a good goal is because it doesn't apply to fit people. Another reason you should never listen to the scale is because this person shit on their diet and everything else for weeks, but they still maintain this goal on the scale. So was the scale a good representation of their adherence to a program at that point? No, because they haven't been doing it right. So the scale has nothing to do with what that person should be accomplishing. Sorry. So what's the right way to do it then, I guess, is the next question. We go through this process when we first start or when we restart. And the caution about restarting is people should not restart often, and the people should not restart. God, I hate that. I hate this. Here's what I hate. I hate Monday is new. I'm going to start it. This week it's going to work. I hate that. Because in your mind, if you can restart Monday, you can restart indefinitely, and that's just not the truth. You cannot restart indefinitely. It doesn't work that way. We don't have this ability to whitewash our past and then make a new starting point. It doesn't work. So it's not starting, it's continuing. Even if you've been failing for a year, you're continuing. You're not starting over because guess what? That entire year of mistakes are lessons that you can use to actually move forward now. Forgetting about those lessons is a mistake. They were useful. They served a purpose. You've proved to yourself what you cannot do. Now the second part is to get grounded back into reality, not a delusion, and start to move forward. Here's the plan that I have in my mind for every person that starts Spartan, and it would be different for healthy people everywhere. I don't know of another coach that puts this much thought into stuff. So we want to have linear progression. We want to always move forward and progress, right? So we have these goals, and these goals should be the same. And this is why they shouldn't be bullshit goals. They should be the same goals for everybody. Well, I don't want to do what that person's doing. You don't have a choice. You're either moving forward or you're moving backwards. And if you haven't proven that to yourself yet, give yourself some more time. You will. You're either moving forward or moving backwards in some facet of your physical body. You can't do two things at once. It just doesn't work that way. So the first step is a learning process. Right here, right? So all of a sudden you've been confronted with this new information. And we're in this process. What's getting you from step to step as a goal is health and longevity. And it's a goal because you cannot screw up health and longevity, right? If the goal is to fit into a size 2, you can screw up a lot in that goal. If the goal is health and longevity, there's no room for error. Those mistakes that you trickled back in from the losses that you checked off, those are hurting your health and longevity still. They might not be hurting your size 2, but they're hurting your health and longevity. So if we go through this process with that as a goal, all of a sudden we're here. Health and longevity is the goal, coming in or restarting, whatever that means to you, continuing, now that we know what my definition is of it. after you learn new stuff, you have to adhere to those things for enough time for that to make a difference. So the next step would be adherence. So all of a sudden we have another marker to look at. Again, the underlying goal or the line is health and longevity, right? Then from there, we're getting leaner, stronger, faster. Leaner first, stronger second, faster third. The problem with most people isn't that you're not strong enough to do push-ups. The problem with most people is that you're pushing up too much. The body was not designed to push up what you have. So you get leaner, then you get stronger. Are you actually physically stronger at this point? Probably not. You're probably just leaner. There's 10 less pounds to push up, so of course it's going to be easier, right? And then you get faster as this goes through. And so then those are also tangible goals, leaner, stronger, faster. One of those, or all of those, doesn't matter. So we're moving through that still with this underlying goal of health and longevity. At some point, there's a relearning curve always. After you're leaner, stronger, faster, things are continuing to change in a pretty big way. Because at this point, to get here, we're making changes fairly regularly. I often tell people if we're not changing your nutrition once every 2 weeks, it's because you're not hearing enough for us to make the changes, for us to take effect, for us to know if those changes are working. So the whole concept of, I'll follow the macros that I followed 6 months ago because that worked. It didn't work because you're not there still. It actually didn't work. So the mindset of redoing that is kind of crazy. Does that make sense? So we're relearning again at this point? Right? Still traveling with this health and longevity goal. Now you have new stuff to adhere to because you've learned new stuff. So again, health and longevity is the goal. Adherence. Now from this point, leaner, stronger, faster again. And as far as I know, this just continues indefinitely. And I know this because every single person that goes through this process gets better every single week in some facet for years. I don't know of this not working for people. I don't. So this can continue indefinitely. And if it doesn't continue, it's a choice. It's not your genetics. What else? It's not your age. A bunch of excuses people always use. Huh? Job, yeah. It's none of those things. It all boils down to this. In the beginning, we have in our mind what we think a tolerance limit to changes are. So we make all these changes and we have this limit that if we go above this in a number of changes, it's too much and I can't take it, right? So when people first come in or continue, however you choose to think about that, what happens is there's a lot in the beginning, but then it starts to go way down. And at some point, your perceived effort is actually less than your actual effort. It's a perception thing. When you are learning here, the effort, the perceived effort, is higher. After you adhere for a certain period of time and you apply this information, it's easy because of repetition and saturation. So the more you do something over and over and over, the easier it is to continue doing that thing instead of stopping that thing. Where the hell am I? Where do I continue from? This is too hard. So it goes up and then it comes down, but at some point it bisects right here. Then the amount of effort, it's perceived by the way, because effort is whatever, right? It's a perception. The amount of effort is less than what you're actually doing. So now all of a sudden you're just living this healthy lifestyle, leaner, stronger, faster, learning new things, adhering to those things, and just going through this process, and it is easy in your mind. Whether the reality of that being easy or not is whatever, because in your mind it's easy. And from here on out, once you pass this point, it's actually easy. And why the hell wouldn't you? And why you wouldn't get to that point? That's just how it becomes. So here's what not to do, right? Let's say the orange line is going to represent bullshit goals, right? And so we get to this point where it's kind of the same. So we get to this learning curve, all right, good, right? Then we get to adherence. Okay, we're doing good, right? And then we get to leaner, stronger, faster, and we're doing good. We're doing good. But then all of a sudden, what happens, what starts to skew off is, I'm here now. I'm here. I'm that number on the scale. I'm that size clothes. I've attracted that spouse. Whatever. I'm here. And so all of a sudden, it starts to go down. The problem with that going down is, in order for it to go back up, we're repeating these steps over again. So at this point, what's that word? Productivity. So at this point, our productivity is down because we're going to have to do things over. And so we do those things over, right? We repeat steps 1, 2, and 3 over, and we get a little higher, but then we're there again. We're there. We're at this place. We're comfortable. I'm in this size clothes. People look up to me. Everyone tells me how good I look all the time. That's surface bullshit goals. And so then, I can trickle some stuff back in. And I got to do this again. Productivity is non-existent. And you go through this process until you go crazy and quit. And that's why people quit. It has nothing to do with anything else. That's usually just it right there. So, this person's perceived effort starts out barely below where they think their limit is. And it goes up until this area that is just undoable. This person's and this person are both working with a human body. The biochemistry is relatively the same. As far as tracking is concerned, I can accurately depict where this person's going to be in 2 years. I can accurately depict where this person's going to be in 2 years too. What's the main difference between those two people? Perception. That is the only difference. One person has built something in their mind to be beyond their tolerance limit, even though they did it in the beginning. It's the same stuff that they have already done. But now, for whatever reason, it's beyond what they can handle, and it continues to rise with as long as they stick to it. So instead of having this bisecting line to where your effort is less than your actual action, it just goes on forever. And every time you adjust and you try to connect these two lines, it's further. The effort's more. The effort's more. The effort's more. And every time you connect those lines, you instantly feel bad about where you're going. Which obviously isn't good. Does everybody understand that? Does that make sense? Sound like bullshit? Does this sound like bullshit? So the perception has to change. At some point, the perception has to change. Because inevitably what's going to happen is you're going to make your goals different from these goals. And it's going to be based upon perceived effort. Perceived, not actual. And so instead of going through this process and setting realistic, effective goals, you're going to say, how much effort is it going to take for me to get here? And then you're going to ask yourself the question of, is that past my tolerance limit? And the answer is yes, it is past your tolerance limit. And so you do it for a very short period of time because in your brain, the longer you do it, the more effort it's taking to do it. When the reality is, if there's no break in that adherence, it's actually getting easier. Right? Was that fairly clear? Anybody have anything to add? No? Good. All right, don't set a bullshit goal. What is this shit? Well, the audio sucks on my videos. That's what this shit is. Because the microphone's here, and if I'm talking here, no one hears it. Also, too, every time I have a talk, whether it's in a candid situation or whether it's in a group, that talk is gone. It's in the ether. It's never to be done again in the way that I did it initially the first time. So depending upon the level of enthusiasm or connection that I have with the people, it's totally different every time. So we're going to